Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to a new series I'm seeking to do here on the channel. And that is going from our new player guide series to what I'm going to call our intermediate guide series. Kind of the next step after the new player guide series, where we touched a lot of the fundamental, very basic things within the game and getting up through all the access levels, as we talked about clan battles last week. And now I feel it's time that we can transition into an intermediate player guide series where I can cover some more different aspects about the game, a little bit more in depth, different things. And then maybe eventually we'll do some sort of like, well, not maybe, at some point, probably be a year or something from now, do like a pro player guide series, something like that. I'm still working on improving at the game, but I feel pretty confident that I can definitely do an intermediate player guide series. So you're going to see some more of my North American server account in action here, and not just the EU server account. Still going to play it, still going to be working with it, but most of my attention is on my North American server account, or I'm still grinding and going up in tier, so on and so forth. So today we're going to talk about Epicenter. Epicenter is something I actually kind of touched on Friday when I was playing the Ohio. But I thought, you know what? Maybe we can touch on these different types of game modes. Even though maybe it seems like a beginner, it seems a very basic thing. But the reality is that there's a good number of players who don't quite understand this game mode and how it differs from standard battles in domination mode, or standard mode, domination mode, and then you get this Epicenter mode. So with Epicenter mode, you have 3 rings, as you can see on the mini-map, and we just sailed out of the outer ring. You have these 3 rings, and basically the point of Epicenter is to encourage players to draw them in closer. Maybe there's a little bit more brawling, close quarters combat action happening, to control the middle of the map. That is the point of Epicenter. Because if your team does not control the middle of the map, doesn't control these different cap rings, then the points happen so quickly that you'll just lose. So you really have to pay attention to how the Epicenter game, Epicenter points, how the points are ticking. And there's a huge role on the destroyers in this game mode, particularly in the center and the mid ring. Usually you can have battleships, cruisers are sitting in that outer ring, as you can kind of see here, especially when you look at the mini map. But definitely destroyers have a lot of responsibility in this game mode, and not just solely working the flanks, which we're going to work the flanking in the beginning, and then we're going to transition into the caps as the battle progresses. But I'm always keeping an eye of how things are going. You can see no one's won a cap yet. They're all being contested. I do want to draw attention to my teammates in this battle, because that Kitakaze player that you see in the mid center ring, he's not really going to move much at all this entire game mode. Like, he understands the concept of contesting that middle cap. And the was it Adelny that's also on our team? He's going to do a good job, so on and so forth. So right now I'm keeping an eye on what's happening, and I don't feel pressure that I need to immediately jump onto the caps and work there. With Tears of the Desert, this map, it's also known as Tears of the Cruisers, because just a lot of bad things can happen to cruiser players in this game, just getting run-shotted, so on and so forth. But I'm working this flank on this side of the map where I spawned, particularly because a lot of ships, battleships and cruisers, sit down when I'm throwing those torpedoes that just got a hit where that smoke is. A lot of battleship cruiser players will sit in there. My goal is to kind of get them to back off this outer ring cap section on this side, and putting some pressure on them. That is really my goal here, and see if I can get some good torpedo hits before we end up transitioning more to contesting the caps. So we have this Sasio. He's got deep water torps. We don't have to worry about being torpedoed by him. Deep water torps. I think he can actually only hit battleships and aircraft carriers, so he can't touch us. So I'm not worried about eating torpedoes from him. But I decide I need to go dark here. Probably should just stay dark. I think I popped some shots off on the cruiser. Because you don't have a smoke in Oland, so you're this gunboat. I'm trying to pay attention as you took a massive hit there. But you have repair parties, which we've already used, and we have our engine boost try to draw some distance. So I'm trying to force them back off this flank, and where you see me keep throwing torpedoes in to, but I'm a little too far away. I need to get back closer to my division mate and continue to work along this cap ring. So the Oland torpedoes reload pretty quickly, but they don't do a lot of damage. They're quick, very fast, but reload quickly, but they do light damage. So you can throw a lot of torpedoes out, and you're going to be able to see some pretty good examples of that as the battle progresses. So you can see we have the enemy team. They kind of have this line going right now if you're looking at the mini map, and we're going to sail back towards the caps. Or you can see again the Kid Kaze player. He's still working those two mid rings. I'm trying to see where our Delny was. Kind of hard to see on the mini map for some reason. With he might be in a cluster with our other ships. No, there he is. He's up on C3. So he's been working the flank. He's a gunboat. He's probably been able to push them back a bit. So basically, we're making the enemy team feel uncomfortable on this flank because we're working out here. We're throwing torpedoes repeatedly, so on and so forth. The other reason why I wanted to sit out here is and stay here a little longer is there's also the ASUS who we've seen already who throws those deep water torpedoes. So I'm trying to also spot for my cruisers and battleships here. It is really difficult, especially on this map, because yes, the caps are important, but if you don't have any destroyer doing any spotting or coverage on the flank, it can make life really difficult for, you can see all my teammates that are kind of clustered up there on the 7-8 line in the cap here. It can make life really difficult for them and really backfire if they don't have any destroyer coverage on the flank. So the big thing here is seeing, is your team contesting the caps? Or are they being able to take the caps? If you see that that is happening, then you can take time and work the flanks, if you will. Like here, I'm a destroyer player. If I was a cruiser player, I'd be sitting on the mid or the outer cap ring right now. But if you're a destroyer player, you can take that additional time and I can work out here on the flank. But as soon as things start getting hairy, and enemy teams taking more control of those caps, you need to contest the caps. You cannot run away back to your spawn, and then when there's only 50 points left for the enemy team before they reach 1,000, the battle's about over, and then you decide, oh, I'm a Palmerin, I'm going to turn back in, and now I'm going to brawl and try to contest the caps. Because you kind of live and die by the points, because if the enemy team controls all three caps, it will just, you'll reach 1,000 points really quick. So as we continue to work here, I'm reversing back. I was trying to see if this cruiser was going to come back out, so I get some torpedoes into him. So I'm keeping my eye on the Napoli. And then we're going to throw some torpedoes here at this enemy Yamato. I'm still trying to keep coverage for my team with this Sasho out here on this flank. And then we lost my clanmate, Doom Beagle, and the Harbin, which is a terrible tier 8 light cruiser. It's very, very, very bad. So he's glad to be done through that grind. So still watching the mini map. A lot of times when I'm waiting in between, maybe getting a torpedo reload off, because I'm just kind of playing stealthy right now. We're not using the guns too much at this point in time. I'm always looking at the mini map. How are things going? How are things going? I was like, oh, we just lost 2 teammates. We're down 4 ships. I'm only down 2. It looks like maybe shortly I am going to have to step onto the caps, but we'll see how things are going. Because I'm just trying to help eliminate these threats on the flank for my Minotaur, who unfortunately just died to the Zumo. And then we also have looks like a Wooster, who's having to run up the 9 line right now, because this flank has essentially, for the most part, it's collapsed. But I'm still here being able to work and delay them, because if the hard part of this Again, kind of as I highlighted, it's cap control, but also the flanks. If you have a flank collapse, especially this flank in particular on this map, the enemy team is going to kind of hook around in, and they can come in on those islands along the 6, 7, 8 line that circle around the mid map, the middle cap. And so if they're able to do that, they can get some pretty good defensive fire positions, and they just eventually they basically just force your team out of the caps, and they win by points. So that is the difficulty with Epicenter here on Tears of the Desert, where on maybe some other maps it's not as terrible to a certain extent. But this map is it is difficult if a flank collapses. So that's why, again, we're playing out here. So here you see we saw those Asashio torpedoes. You don't have to worry about them. You just saw me zoom back in. No need to sweat. So now this Siyong player, I know he's probably going to sail into the cap. There's no need for him to keep staying out here. You can see he's been kind of going back and forth, but there's really no need for him to stay out here. So I know at some point he's a light cruiser. He wants to utilize the islands. He wants that coverage because he's just really fragile. So that's why I continue to keep those torpedoes towards the caps, and there you go. We're also running a unique commander, who I'm totally spacing his name, that he goes on this Swedish pan-European destroyer line. So we basically got a buff on our torpedo tube reload time, which is going to be quite nice. We're going to make use of that as we step back onto these caps and work on contesting them. Which again, you can see our Kitakaze, he's still there. He really hasn't moved much at all between that mid cap and the center cap. So he's doing fantastic work. So big shout out to him. And then Nadelny, he's still working that flank and keeping the enemy team off. But now as the battle progresses, when there's less and less players, you can kind of get to draw in. More players tend to draw in towards on the cap, because it's very hard to just try to yellow and push right in at the beginning. So we just lost 2 teammates, but we did pick up the enemy Poison. Our Kitakaze player did really good. We lost a booster, so now we are definitely the only ship over here on this flank. So we have a Moggy back in our spawn, and we're going to throw some torpedoes at the Baltimore. Baltimore has a 10-kilometer radar. Something I'll probably hit on in an upcoming video is it's important to learn what ships do have radar and don't have radar, or have the options to mount radar. Because especially as a destroyer player, that's huge if you know what ships have radar and what don't, because it will definitely alter your positioning and your gameplay. So there's a lot of things we're seeking to cover in this intermediate player guide series that I'm pretty excited about to kind of take that next step deeper with you all from the new player guide series. So enemy team, they just flipped this mid cap ring, so I'm immediately going to step on it. I have 2 teammates right now at the moment who are on the outer cap ring, so don't have to worry about the enemy team continuing to progress capturing it. So we're going to move in here, trying to see what's going on here with the enemy team. Maybe we can get some torpedoes off on someone. Let's see here. Yeah, they got an Izumo back there. So we got this North Carolina. So we're getting requested support. I didn't catch who that was from, but we're gonna work in here now. So there's no one on the outer ring right now, but the Amagi player is actually about to step on. So that's gonna be helpful, so I don't have to worry about running back there. So I'm gonna be paying attention to the lines. So you can see I'm kind of drifted almost into the mid cap ring, but I don't need to do that. Kitakaze's in it right now. I'm going to stay in the mid cap ring. So we'll still continue to see what's happening. Looks like the Izumo player is going to push up that flank. You know, we're no longer working that flank, so that's vulnerable. It's more important to come here towards these caps, especially when you look at our Kitakaze player. He does not have much of any health left at all. Our Delny is less than half health. So this is where things are going to become important. So we're going to call out a target. North Carolina was almost dead. So well done to the team for getting rid of him. And again, using those quick commands, new player guide series intermediate player guide series or a pro Unicum player guide series, it's always important to try to utilize those commands. You're not just spamming them, being really annoying to your team, but using them in a good way, calling out low targets, calling attention to, hey, there's a destroyer here, using your mini-map, so on and so forth. So we'll kind of continue to cover those things as we go through this series. So we're going to go ahead and throw some torpedoes this way. And I'm trying to see, yeah, the enemy Amagi. We got the Baltimore, who's coming to the center cap. Baltimore has a 10-kilometer radar range. As he just dies to Amagi being completely broadside. That was epic. Really good timing. So our team's doing really good here, even though we're points behind, but then we lose our Amalfi, unfortunately. So you also get to see the importance and the power of when you have your destroyers are still remaining on the team, and maybe the enemy team doesn't have as many destroyers, but the enemy team still has 2 in this case. So the Kitakaze, he's left the mid cap right now, but it looks like he's reversing back into the center cap. I'm still parked on this outer cap ring. Amagi's left the outer. I know for shortly he's going to sail back into it. So because we don't want to have the enemy team continue to get these points. So they're getting 5 points at the moment off the outer cap. Yeah, 5 points. We'll open gunboat a little bit here. Still have a heal left that we can utilize. This enemy Amagi is low. So we want to be able to pressure him. Maybe we can get a fire set. It looks like either the Delny or the Kitakaze got a fire going. So we basically want to start chewing him down. So we can focus more on the other 2 battleships still at play and the 2 destroyers that are still at play. So we're going to utilize the edge of the island. One of the things I'm going to often hit on, you'll see me do, is use the edge of an island for coverage. So we can see we're dark, and we get to get free damage in on this enemy Amagi, and we pick up our 2nd kill. This enemy Holland that you see, he's really, really, really low. I'm going to go ahead and push in, close the gap, and see if I can't pick him up, because I don't want our friendly Amagi have to keep dealing with him. But go ahead and execute him, because I'm not sure if he has any repair parties left, but he's definitely low, with only having, what was that, 500 HP, something like that. Now we also have to be mindful of this enemy, is it a Yamato? Sometimes I can't always tell on my recording software screen, because it doesn't take up the entire screen. It only takes up like 2/3, so, or actually less than 2/3. So he's dead. The Delny got rid of him, which is great. So now I can push further into this mid cap. We can still see it's contested. So we know there's an enemy destroyer that's still somewhere around here. Being the Asashio B that we saw earlier. So you can see our team, we're using the chat as well, just communicating important details to one another. With Izumo pushing up on our friendly Amagi, I'm going to go ahead and go for the Holland now, but I'm going to throw torpedoes towards the enemy Izumo, because one of the things that's really easy to do as a player is that you can get this tunnel vision where you don't have any map awareness. So if I'm the Izumo player, I want to be like, I don't know if I should sail past this island right now, because there are still 3 destroyers at play. You know, Kitakaze and myself and Owen, like, we definitely have the range to hit him. So maybe I want to stay behind the island, because there's destroyers who just flipped the mid cap, right? There's no other destroyer or another players alive besides destroyers. But it's not what he does. So he's going to eat torpedoes, and we're going to pick up our 3rd kill. And now my goal, because we've secured the center, we've got our Kitakaze and Delny working the mid, is I'm going to go hunt down this enemy Holland. Because I want to help our Amagi, friendly Amagi player out and keeping him alive, even though he's really low on health. And there's no destroyers in any of the caps right now. So they've all left. You can see on the mini-map that we just flipped the outer ring. And then we're about to flip the mid ring right now. So we pick up the enemy Holland with his 500 health. So if these shells land, it should be a kill. Indeed it is. It's going to be our 4th kill. And then you can actually, the points weren't that too far off in the last dying minutes of the match. So this actually ended up kind of being a close match towards the end here. So I was establishing the control of the cap, and we had a really good team doing really great there. So we're going to end with over 880,000 credits, 17,600 experience, 15,500 free XP with general offensive and devastating strike, with 82,000 damage, 68 shell hits, 11 torpedo hits, 4 destroyed, and 5 flooding, with some assisted capture ribbons in there as well. So going over to team score, you're going to see that we are going to come in second place on the team. The Friendly Delny did really, really good. And there you can see the Kitakaze did really good. There's 5 kills between the 3 of us, and our Magi there at the end. So that's just the power of destroyers who are playing well with this Epicenter Tears of the Cruiser match. Tears of the Desert, but Tears of the Cruiser, as it's known. Here you get to see the layout, so definitely not much health on the Holland but when we killed him. But we did some very good damage on the Seong, and we finished off the Izumo in the enemy Amagi here. So, and here's credits and experience. So we had a lot of XP modifiers mounted and some special signals, so on and so forth. So that is Epicenter for you. There's a few maps that this game mode is on, some lower tiered, mid tier, and higher tiered. But you just have to be mindful of 2 things. The first and primary thing is your team contesting, fighting for the cap progress of those 3 rings. If not, then you need to call your team's attention towards it. And if you're able to yourself be able to contest those caps, it's also hard because especially as you have radars at this tier on Tears of the Desert, you can have an enemy Petrol or Moscow that can have full coverage basically of a lot of those whole areas on the map. The other thing is being mindful of the flanks, because if you have a flank fold and completely fall apart, enemy team can really pinch in and just squeeze you essentially out of being able to contest the caps. So hopefully this video explained that. I'm talking about Epicenter here today in the start of this new intermediate player guide series. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And if you have thoughts, suggestions for me to cover on in the intermediate player guide series, I will. I'll do my best to try and do that. Some things you'd be like, oh, that really seems like a basic or a beginner thing, but here we are. And Epicenter seems to be one of those game modes that not a lot of players understand and really wrestle with. So I just want to highlight, I want to draw attention to it as we start off this series. So until next time, take care.